Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. You know, that 1 minute montage you just saw, that was actually going to be the entire video, to be honest. But I figured, you know what, it's been a while since I've actually made a video. Honestly, after coming back from this trip from BC, for the first time ever, weirdly enough, in, making videos, I feel like I have something to say. But I will try to, I will keep this short because honestly, there is so much to say, but there's only so much yapping that I could do to I guess, kind of get my idea across. So I'll try to keep this concise, pretty much. To whoever is watching this video, if you have these inclinations to travel and to explore, new areas and just kind of leave your hometown for a bit, and you have not already, I really do encourage you to do it. Now, why do I encourage you to do it? Just to preface, I understand that I'm coming from a very privileged and fortunate position in order to have gone solo traveling for a week. And I'm just gonna, hedge my bets on that whoever's watching this video likely is in boots not too different from mine and probably also does want to travel as well, but just has not for whatever reason. And I guess I'm just making this video to tell that person, that you can travel, and it's actually can be such a formative experience as it was for me. Okay, let's kind of restart here. If you do want to travel and have not already, for whatever reason that may be, if you're in a position where you can but just have not, I really do encourage you to do it. The earlier the better, and I genuinely mean that, because I feel like when you're young, like I'm 21, like when you're young, it's just you experience the world in in a different manner than you would when you're not 21 or not in your early 20s. And I feel like the earlier the better is what I'm trying to say. Number one, I guess I'll go into why I decided to solo travel. See, now, growing up in the suburbs of Ontario, of southern Ontario for, essentially my whole life, it's been good. I'm not going to say it's been bad, but, there's just too much of the same. Like, it just became too much of the same, too monotonous. Like, the lifestyle became too monotonous, and, there would be moments of spontaneity and, variety in, the life I kind of live. But the day-to-day, is just very monotonous, very, very monotonous. And I figured, you know what? I've been wanting to travel alone. I have been wanting to leave my home city for a while now. I guess I was kind of afraid in the beginning. But I figured, you know what? It doesn't really matter, because I'm literally going to be around new people entirely, new communities in a new neighborhood and a new culture for, a week. And I figured, you know what? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what I say to myself or what I, think people will say to me. It's just a matter of just going and leaving and experiencing and understanding that, the life you have is only one. And I don't want to, get all corny and whatever, but it's the truth. I feel like I've said this before, but, the truth does lie in the corniness of things. It really does. Yeah, I just kind of left. I kind of just went because I just wanted a change in lifestyle, honestly, and I just wanted to be around different people and to put myself in a different environment and put myself in challenging situations where I kind of have to rely on myself and my abilities more so than I would, in my day-to-day here in my hometown. But that was kind of like the why. And I won't lie, after I booked the ticket, after accommodation was booked, I was pretty nervous. Because I'm like, okay, not only am I financially bound to this decision, there is this, I have kind of made a commitment to myself saying, okay, I'm gonna go now. Now, if I kind of back out, I feel like that would have pretty adverse effect on my, mental health and self-esteem. But that aside, I think I'll talk about that. That was kind of like the why, and what I've gained, man, mind you, I've only went for a week, so I don't want to. Now, there is an argument to be made that the experience I had was, biased, or it wasn't a proper reflection of what it's like to live there. because it's only a week, and when you're in a limited time frame, you obviously want to push yourself to do more. At least so that's what I did. I pushed myself to experience as much as I could within that week. But I will say, that argument is fair. But I will say that the conversations that I had, that's something you could have no matter when, no matter where, right? The conversations that I had, those were so much more, I don't know, eye-opening. That was a kind of like a really eye-opening moment, because these conversations, they give you perspective, and that's one big takeaway, is that when you travel alone to a new place for the first time, the place you're unfamiliar with, to around people you're unfamiliar with, you gain perspective. I think that's so important when it comes to, I guess, developing as a person, because these conversations, like growing up in your hometown, you are likely surrounded by people with, on similar walks of life and with similar goals, and there's not that much variability within people's lifestyles, which I mean is not a bad thing, which is kind of to be expected, having lived in a place for this long. But when you're having these conversations with people, and the perspective that you gain is pretty much tells you that these people lead such vastly different lives to you, and they have so many stories to tell, and I guess that just pushes you to have your own stories to tell. Not to say that you wouldn't have stories to tell prior to traveling, but it's just this kind of like this eye-opener. It's like, damn, these people actually lead very different lives, and they have experienced things such different things in comparison to myself, and that's kind of really important to have, because when you have stories to tell, that's how relationships build, that's how you connect with people, that's how you resonate with people. I feel like that's very important to gain perspective, to gain different perspectives on different ways of living, different personalities, different people with different goals. It's just different people, you're just around different people. And yeah, that's honestly, that's a really big thing. Second thing I will say, just to be in a different place geographically, is very important as well, because if you grow up in whatever city you grew up in, you're likely traveling down the same roads, down the same streets, taking the same walks on the same neighborhoods, bumping into the same corner store, or grocery store. You're going to the same places, more or less, right? But when you're in a different place geographically, not only are you surrounded by different people, you're also surrounded by different places. In some scenarios, and don't get me wrong, obviously, like some of the places that are here in my city are in Squamish as well, right? Like there's a Walmart there, there's a Dollarama there, but I guess what I mean to say is like more topography of more like landscape. Ontario is very flat. That's one thing I guess I've realized, and other people, I've kind of had these conversations with people there as well. Funnily enough, a lot of people that I spoke to are from Ontario and have moved to Squamish. So yeah, it's very interesting. It is very interesting. A lot of people I spoke to there in general had recently moved to Squamish, or within the last 5-ish years moved to Squamish. And I think that's cool, man. That's so cool. And people, especially the people from Ontario, they grew up around the same areas I grew up in, and I currently live in. So it's cool to see that they actually made that change to live somewhere else geographically. And I think what there is to gain in being in a different place geographically is that one person I met, he was from England. He had moved to Squamish 6 months prior. He said that the geology and topography of a place kind of affects like your mood, or something along those lines. It affects like your, curiosity, affects your inclination to explore, Because one thing about Squamish is that nobody's really like a homebody, if that makes sense. Everyone's out and about, or at least like the locals that I kind of spoke to. Everyone's out and about, everyone's active. The town of Squamish is actually called the adventure capital of Canada. So it kind of makes sense for everyone to be kind of out and about. But yeah, like the guy from England I spoke to, he's like, yeah, the geology and topography of a place really affects your inclination to explore and affects your mood overall. And I'm like, yeah, man, like if you're surrounded by mountains, right? If you're surrounded by valleys of mountains, 360, you walk outside of any store, walk outside your house, surrounded by mountains. Just naturally you're gonna want to be like, okay, yeah, let's check that out. Let's check out this place. Let's check out this hike. Let's check out this trail. Let's check out this waterfall. And I feel like that's so appealing. That resonates with me so much. As someone who's into nature and into outdoor kind of stuff, like that stuff. I don't know. It was cool. It was really cool to see it. And I think speaking to people that actually made committed, who just sent it and just moved there from their hometown, and moved to a new place to live, to experience what it's like to live in a new place completely. That's very admirable. It's a very admirable thing. And I don't know, I'm feeling inspired to do kind of like the same, hopefully in a couple of years. Like I could definitely see myself living in Squamish. If not Squamish, then in British Columbia for sure, because I feel like just being on the west coast, there's a lot of mountains, and there can be a lot of mountains depending on where you stay, and like I don't know, I just feel like it's more in line with what I kind of want out of life. But I digress. But yeah, like the point of this video is essentially to share a couple words on why I think it's important to travel. Now, another thing I want to mention is that I traveled alone. Now, would I tell everyone to travel alone? I would tell everyone to try their best to travel alone, because I will say there is a solace and serenity in seeing familiar people, in your day-to-day. So maybe going with a friend would actually bring a greater sense of comfort for I feel like a lot of people. So yeah, you could definitely travel with a friend, but I feel like when you're alone, and then yeah, and that's another thing to mention, when you're kind of alone, it is easier to be a little bit more recluse, because you have like full autonomy. No one's really telling you per se to do anything. But I will say, on the other side of the same coin, you have to push yourself to talk to new people and make conversation with people you wouldn't expect to make conversation with. And sorry, I think it's a squirrel. On the other side of the same coin, you push yourself to make conversation with people you wouldn't expect to make conversation with, and yeah, you end up finding out so much about the other person, and you feel like after the conversation you find out so much about yourself. It was just a TLDR, this experience. I'm very grateful to have this experience, and I think it was a very formative experience, be it for a week. And that's another thing, people live like this for months, years on end. And it's just like, imagine the experiences and the stories they have to tell, And I've only went for a week, and I feel like I have so much to say. But yeah, no, it's just a matter of just doing it. It's just a matter of doing it, just leaving. If you're in a position to explore, to leave, your hometown, just do it. Just do it. Especially when you're young, just do it. Like, it's just, you're gonna be back to, your regular life and whatever amount of time you go for, right? So I went for a week. I knew from the jump that I was gonna be back, back to the day-to-day, back to the suburbs of Southern Ontario in a week. And and that's when you kind of accept, and you just open yourself to so many things, so many new experiences that you wouldn't typically have, in your hometown. And yeah, that's pretty much, I guess, kind of what I want to say. No, I'm not gonna say I found myself or some shit like that, because that's kind of corny. I will say I've come closer to figuring out the life I want to lead. I implore everyone to just take the risk, take the leap of faith. Just travel. Leave your hometown. The world is a really big place, and that was also another huge takeaway. Is like, the world's a huge place. Like, where I was, it was Canada. Like, I didn't think Canada was this beautiful, in terms of landscape and geography and topography. Like, it's very surreal. Squamish is a very surreal place. The montage that I filmed it on like my little, digital camera. So the quality obviously wasn't the best. It was kind of old school. And I feel like I kind of did that intentionally, like I wanted like as beautiful as like the place may seem, even in like the little pictures that were in the montage, I feel like to really, and mind you, I've taken obviously photos on my iPhone of the place. Of course, I have definitely captured Squamish in good quality. But I will say, like, the reason I made that montage with my digital camera is that even if I showed you the good pictures, even if I showed you like the good videos, it really doesn't do it justice, man. They don't do the place justice. You really have to go to understand, to see, to experience, to feel the wind, in your face, to feel the coldness in your palms, to feel your fingertips like freezing, at the top of, at the top of a hike, at the top of a summit, and it's just like you have to feel. You just have to feel for yourself, and you have to see for yourself, you have to experience for yourself. And that's kind of what the point of this video was, is to encourage the person watching to explore, to encourage everyone watching to explore and to leave your hometown and to meet different people, make conversation, speak to people you wouldn't expect to get along with, because in those conversations and in those experiences lie something that I can't put into words, genuinely. Like, I've been yapping for the past 15 minutes. Can't truly put into words how grateful I am to experience this, number one, and how much I feel like I've changed my outlook on things. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching. Do like and subscribe, because I am trying to get into the habit of making more YouTube videos. I've said this like 45 times, I feel like. And yeah, hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.